Hello, welcome back to Let's Play Assassin's Creed 2. Today will be kind of a filler episode. I'm not feeling the best, so I'm mostly just going to read from the diaries, even though, or not the diaries, but like the historical logs and stuff, even though that might not be the best idea, given that I'm feeling a little upper respiratory infection right now. But I was playing with some settings to make the game show up a little bit better on YouTube, because it's just atrociously dark in some parts. And I found the last three statues, actually. I was running around just getting a sample of lighting to test the settings, and I made a couple of changes, some to the game, some to OBS, and some to whatchamacallit, the way I edit the video. So hopefully that'll pay off. There's another one there, I think. But I see that one, so we can head for that one right now. And I didn't do anything else but that, so really the only difference since the last time I booted this up on stream is that I think I have one payment waiting in the chest for the town, but can I even reach that? That's kind of... That depends very strongly on whether... Okay. Then I can reach it. I'm gonna say that depends strongly on whether I can get up here or not, but there we go. A little extra money never hurt. And we'll get another, what, 4,000 florins from, just from turning those statues in. So, we'll be in a pretty good position. There's the last one. Or a last one. I still hear something around the church, but... There we go. Neptune. Oh, I can go in the church now. Not a big church, but then again, this is a small town. Oh, what's that? Is that gonna be... Oh, it's probably just a treasure chest then. But still. Okay, I got another payment, I guess. Or maybe I did, I don't know. Or if it's just reminding me of the one I already have, but... Crap, how do I get up there? I feel like I gotta get on these railings some... Oh, I probably climb this, don't I? There we go. Oop. There we go, now I won't have to listen to these anymore. Next time No! Next time I pass by the church. There we go. So let's pop these statues in their slots and collect that money, which also, if I remember correctly, adds to your hourly income of the town too, because it makes the town look better or something. I forget what the exact reasoning was, but let's see here. So this one we filled in. This one we filled in. This is the next one, which is completely empty. And there we go. I believe that's Jupiter and Minerva. Yeah, Jupiter and Minerva. And then the last one is Neptune and Pluto, I believe. There we go. Yep, Neptune and Pluto. And those ancient Greek gods weren't big on clothes, were they? Alright, so we can go back in. I'm going to collect the money we've collected so far, use that to buy an upgrade, and then I'm going to read a bunch of entries that we've collected so far. There we go. Okay, so it's just reminding me I had 2,000. So, let's talk to the architect.
Salute, Ser Ezio. Shall we take a look at the list?
Okay, I apologize if you guys can hear that. One of my cats is trying to break into my wardrobe. She's smart enough to do it, she just doesn't have the strength to do it. Let's see, we could upgrade the bank. That would be an extra 5,000. We have enough for the blacksmith, though. I feel like that's probably the way to go, because if we prioritize the blacksmith, then we can get our discount. We get a 15% discount, which then incentivizes us to then buy from that blacksmith shop. And that just gives us more money per, there we go. More money per cycle anyways, because that's going to be 700 as opposed to 500.
Buon viaggio!
There we go. I would like to look at the book.
Salute, Claudia.
You here to look at the book?
Yeah, so now we were bringing in 22, now we're bringing in 2,600. And if we go to collections here, I think it's under collections. Maybe not. Is it under renovations? No. I did get the mines, okay. Do they not count? I thought they did. I guess not. I guess I was mistaken. I thought they counted in your collections. They're not chest. Nope, they do not count. I guess they do give you the one-time cash, which I guess is good enough, but portraits of Ezio's targets. Oh, I suppose that's just for progress in the main story. All codex pages, all feathers, all models, all seals, all paintings, all portraits. All shops are open, so that's a big chunk of value there. And if we finish these three, then we get that. So I imagine this could double the value.
A presto, Ezio.
So there we go. We made a bit more of an upgrade to our shop, and now is it tab? No, I think it's under escape. Now we're going to do some readings from the database. I think a recent entry is just what I've unlocked recently. Oh, this is going to be mercenaries. Rebecca 84. I bet you can pay those mercenaries to fight for you. Just go up and talk to them. Mercenaries were highly mobile in Renaissance Italy, moving from contract to contract. Professional captains called condottieri, usually paid for by cities, recruited men for a fixed amount of time. Many of the for-hire soldiers who served in Italy weren't even Italian, coming from places like Germany, Switzerland, and Hungary. In their perpetual struggle to dominate Italy, the Italian states hired mercenaries to wage war against their Italian neighbors, and the soldiers, many of whom had no code of honor, would often rape and sack freely. When the state that was bankrolling them ran out of money, the soldiers would disband, frequently to be hired to destroy the very city they had just fought to defend. Some mercenaries were honorable, fighting for a cause they believed in, but men such as these were few and far between. Where they existed, however, they were much sought after. Caravan travel. What does sort do? Okay. It just remove the mercenaries? Weird. Anyways, caravan travel was next, so I guess we'll read that. Oh, Underworld. There we go. Oops. There we go. Caravan travel. Rebecca 84, you should be able to buy a caravan ride to another city. Travel in the Renaissance was not the disgusting ordeal it is today. Instead, it was merely terrifying. The countryside was filled with bandits, causing most travelers to move in armed groups called caravans. Excuse me. Anxious voyagers usually sold valuables in gold into the soles of their shoes or the lining of their jackets. Guides called vetturini were sometimes hired to help plot the route of the caravans and book rooms at local inns, but those carriers were often working with the bandits just like travel agents today. Courtesans. Rebecca 84. Those girls are definitely available for hire. I bet you can use them as moving cover. In fact, try sending them to tempt unwanted guards. Prostitution was one of the most popular occupations for Renaissance women, whose only other options in most cases were staying with their families or living in a convent. Italian society supported prostitution, and many brothels were regulated by the government. At the end of the 15th century, cities started to pass laws against prostitution, forcing courtesans to wear specific outfits and separating them from respected society. Blacksmiths. Rebecca 84. I bet these guys can sell you weapons, armor, daggers, and ammunition. They even do repairs. Every Renaissance community needed a blacksmith. Swords, locks, pans, knives, nails, and armor were all made from metal and all needed to be shaped. In addition, architectural ironwork flourished during the Renaissance as blacksmiths began to apply their practical craft towards making art. Heralds. Rebecca 84. If a herald tries to draw attention to your assassinations, I bet you can bribe him to keep quiet. Proclamations, local laws, news, market days, and advertisements were all called out by heralds since many Renaissance Italians could not read. Special laws had to be put in place to protect them from the crowd due to the extreme displays of unhappiness following the announcement of tax increases. Thanks. Rebecca 84. It looks like the Templars are using the banking network to transport their money. I bet you could snag some of that cash. With the advent of double entry bookkeeping, which allowed bankers to keep track of their clients' deposits and withdrawals, and the proliferation of many different types of Italian currency into the pool of circulation, banks became an essential part of everyday Renaissance life. Banks technically couldn't make money on their money because the Catholic Church forbade the charging of interest, but in practice, this restriction wasn't followed by bankers or even by the Vatican, which participated in the banking system and required banks to pay the Pope gifts in proportion to the amount of money he had deposited with them. As long as it isn't called interest, God won't notice, right? Tailors. Rebecca 84. I bet you can buy larger bags to carry your equipment from a tailor. Maybe they can even change your outfit, too. Among Renaissance merchants, tailors belonged to the new middle class and were paid well for clothing the rich in the latest fashions. Many were able to get close to their wealthy clients due to the intimacy of their job and create lasting ties. Art merchants. Rebecca 84. Looks like you can buy paintings for the Villa Auditore here. Maybe they have some other special things for sale as well. The shops of the Renaissance artists were usually small and dealt mainly in religious decorations for churches or homes. Artists were not considered visionaries as they are today, but were treated merely as craftsmen, just like carpenters and blacksmiths. The production of art was usually cooperative. The head of the shop was the master, who received commissions and oversaw the assembly of the painting. He was expected to be a businessman and turn a profit, usually creating copies of whatever religious paintings were in vogue at the time. And finally, doctors. Rebecca 84. That doctor should be able to heal you if you pay him. Diagrams of the human body and the printing press influenced Renaissance medicine greatly, which had in turn been influenced by Arabic medicine during the Middle Ages. By the 15th century, science had already begun its slow climb toward becoming more relevant than spirituality in the field of healthcare. However, many people stubbornly clung to old ways, visiting local mystics instead of doctors. After the plague ravaged Europe in 1350, many doctors dressed in special plague gear to treat patients. To prevent contamination, they wore a cape coated in wax and a primitive gas mask in the shape of a beak. Alright, then we have contacts. Christina Vespucci, date of birth 1459, profession student, noble. Christina Vespucci was a well known Florentine beauty and the favorite of painters, most notably Botticelli, who used her as a model for several of his paintings. Records kept by her father's guards indicate Ezio visited her frequently and that he was unbelievably dexterous, as the guards were never able to catch him trespassing. In addition to her looks, Christina also seems to have been somewhat responsible for jump-starting the career of her cousin, the namesake of a rather famous landmass. At a dinner party attended by Christina and, among other illustrious guests, Lorenzo di Medici, she was reputed to have been in conversation with Lorenzo and Manfredo Soderini about her cousin's brilliance as a sailor. Well, apparently she exaggerated his importance slightly to impress Lorenzo, and Lorenzo, charmed by her beauty, agreed to hire him. Try a marigold out. I bet after several years you'll name your shipping company after him, she is reported to have joked. Biggest understatement of the century. Federico Auditore, date of birth 1456, profession student, noble. Ezio's older brother and the eldest Auditore. Federico entered the Medici Bank as a clerk when he was 19. However, the bank logs indicate he mostly dicked around rather than actually working. One entry goes into detail. On September 17, 1475, a bag of gold florins went missing. After panic struck the bank, the elder Auditore approached Francesco Sasietti and with a smile revealed the location of the bag, which had been hidden on the rooftop. If he weren't the son of Giovanni Auditore, I'd speak to Lorenzo di Medici and have him put in the stocks. Unsurprisingly, Federico was removed from the bank's payroll shortly after his 20th birthday. Ezio Auditore, date of birth 1459, profession student, noble. In a diary entry from 1474, Maria Auditore, one of the great Florentine chroniclers and Ezio's mother, describes her son as competitive, stubborn, and loudmouthed, but so compassionate that it is impossible to fault him for anything. Complaints to the city guard by several noble patricians seem to suggest he was also something of a womanizer. Tutored by the great banker Giovanni Torabuni, Ezio's school records cease around age 17, at which point his name is connected with some terrible crime. It is impossible to discern what it could be from the records, there's very little here, but afterward, Ezio drops out of history entirely as if he never existed. Mario Auditore, date of birth 1434, profession condottiero noble. One of several condottieri patrolling the Tuscan countryside, Mario Auditore played a significant role in the Battle of Anghiari, alerting Micheletto Attendolo to the appearance of several dust clouds over the road, which signaled a surprise advance by Milani's troops. Thanks to Mario, the Milanese attack was foiled and the Florentines won the battle. Although Mario sided with Florence in Anghiari for most of his career, he defended the interests of his hometown, Monteriggioni, derailing Florentine attempts to seize Tuscan territory. While Mario's younger brother Giovanni moved to Florence in 1454 to pursue a career in banking, Mario stayed at the family's villa in Monteriggioni, stating in a letter to Giovanni that he preferred fighting like a man to filling out balance sheets. Paula, date of birth 1438, profession Madam of La Rosa Colta. There isn't much information about Paula in the history books, but the Florentine archives reveal that she was orphaned at age 8 when her parents were killed at sea. Left with the choice between joining a nunnery and prostitution, she began life on the streets. At 16, she vanishes from the records only to reappear at age 20 when she was arrested for murdering a city guard. On an interesting note, Giovanni Auditore represented her in court, winning the case on a self-defense plea. Released from prison, Paula went on to start her own brothel to protect many other unfortunate women of the street. Annetta, date of birth 1457, profession servant. The Auditore family's live-in servant, Annetta had one of the few respectable jobs allowed lower-class Renaissance women. Rich families seldom had more than one or two servants. Most were young, sometimes children. Many hoped their masters would help raise their standing, but usually turnover was rapid. Ultimately, very little is known about Annetta's life. She passed on without making a mark on history. Leonardo da Vinci, Date of birth 1452. Profession painter, inventor, designer, architect, scientist, and engineer. The illegitimate son of a notary and a peasant woman, Leonardo da Vinci was raised in Tuscany. Like many destined to be superstars, he had no surname, Vinci being the town in which he was born. At age 14, he was apprenticed to a Florentine painter, Verrocchio, who taught him chemistry, drafting, painting, sculpting, and modeling. When he was 20, Leonardo established his own workshop and then traveled across Italy, eventually painting his great masterpieces The Last Supper in 1498 and the Mona Lisa in 1503 to 1507. During his travels, Leonardo studied the world with unquenchable curiosity, recording his observations in mirror writing within his notebooks. He created designs for a helicopter, tank, solar power, and a calculator, among others. He was also an engineer, designing garrisons, cannons, and movable barricades. Despite this epic list of accomplishments, Leonardo was hounded by his patrons for his chronic procrastination. Pieces frequently took years longer than he anticipated, and many were never finished at all. Leonardo also had a tumultuous love life. Accused of sodomy in 1476, he was most likely homosexual. Salai, his assistant, was accused of stealing and spending too much money on clothes, but was also probably Leonardo's lover. Leonardo painted several pictures of Salai, including his famous St. John the Baptist, and left the Mona Lisa to him when he died in 1519. Sorry about that, the cats are getting a little rowdy there. How much do we have left? Okay. Almost done. Maria Auditori, date of birth 1432, profession writer, noble. I grow tired of these walls that surround me and am bored with safety. Now it is time to make a decision. I will go out there and see what my life may truly be. Maria wrote these words when she was 16, a week before she met Giovanni Auditori. Born into the powerful banking family, the Mazzi, Maria is one of the most famous historical sources of the time period due to her multi-volume diary, which has been translated by several notable scholars and is on display in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence. With funding from her parents, Maria opened up a bakery in the courtyard of her family palazzo, which she transformed into an artistic gathering place. It was there that she met a man with such conviction I found myself rooted to the spot, unable to look anywhere else. That man was Giovanni Auditori. Maria and Giovanni were married in 1450. Maria's diary entries continue for the next few decades, describing her patronage of several up-and-coming artists and her trials as a mother, at which point she abruptly abandons her writing to the disappointment of historians everywhere. Petrusco Auditori, date of birth 1463, profession student, noble. The youngest of the Auditori children, Petruccio was described as having a weak constitution by Giovanni Auditori in a letter to Lorenzo di Medici soon after the boy's birth. Apparently he didn't improve with time. Petruccio was pulled from school due to illness when he was 12, and according to the records from the family doctor, was confined to bed. No other data exists after that, so it is probable that he eventually succumbed to his illness. Claudia Auditori, date of birth 1461, profession student, noble. The third child of Giovanni and Maria Auditori, and the first girl in the family, Claudia seems to have been a bit of a spoiled brat. It looks like her parents had to raise her dowry by 1,000 florins after she scared away all her potential suitors. A report from her school indicates she once attacked another girl for looking at her boyfriend and knocked her out cold. On the plus side, she's Ezio's sister, so you should be safe. Giovanni Auditori, date of birth 1436, profession banker, advisor, and noble. Giovanni Auditori was one of the pivotal figures in 15th century Florentine banking. In charge of overseeing the Medici bank branches across Italy, he kept the Medici machine running while Lorenzo was busy with the government. Extending his reach out into the international operation, it was Giovanni who first noticed the problems with the Leon Bank, causing him to alert Francesco Sassidi, which saved the branch. Such great talent was well rewarded by Il Magnifico. Giovanni developed a close friendship with Lorenzo di Medici, becoming one of his closest advisors. Successful negotiations to secure the Pope's support of the Medici Bank in 1471 were carried out by Giovanni. Relieved and grateful, Lorenzo paid for Giovanni's palazzo as a gift. And that is all of our current contacts. As far as targets, we only have two right now.
Uberto Alberti, trusted friend of the Auditore family. According to the history books, this guy was a saint. He prosecuted murderers, rapists, the worst criminals. One of the best lawyers in Italy, he won every case, in spite of the fact that he was self-taught. Now, I found a back door into the Templars' database server. I've been combing it for some kind of smoking gun. I found it. Apparently, Uberto's family was evicted by the Medici Bank. Uberto's been aching for revenge ever since. And the Templars promised him support. Ezio's father was standing in the way, and Uberto was jealous of his influence over the Florentine government. Two birds with one stone, isn't it? It looks like Uberto used his election to the Signoria as his opportunity to strike.
Uberto Alberti, date of birth 1416, profession Gonfaloniere di Giustizia, executor of the ordinances of justice, traitor. And we have his letter, which I think we've read previously.
My love, I put these thoughts...
And then we have Vieri de Pazzi.
Vieri de Pazzi, the youngest member of the second most notorious Florentine banking family. This kid knew how to burn right through his father's money. Outside of spending sprees involving weaponry, exotic animals, and clothes, he was fiercely competitive. Vieri hosted races of all kinds: boating, horseback riding, running. All of them rigged, of course. And get this, if through some amazing stroke of luck he ever lost, he'd invite the winner's entire family over for a victory dinner and serve them a meal to die for.
Not very sporting, is he? Vieri de Pazzi, date of birth 1454, profession noble. And his letter...
Messer Francesco.
Yeah, is that psychoanalysis from that guy. That's what we got for people. Let's see what we got for locations, starting in Florence. Santa Maria Novella District. Trevor. Sorry about that, cats are getting rowdy again. This district takes its name from the Church of Santa Maria Novella, the first great basilica in Florence. Here you can find the city's great marketplace, the Mercato Vecchio, which lies at the north end of the district. Excuse me, I'll be right back. Sorry about that. One of our cats is being extremely mean to our newest adopted kitten, so I gotta sometimes break them up. Santa Croce, Rebecca 84. One of those strange glyphs Sean mentioned is on this landmark. You should go find it. The largest Franciscan church in the world, Basilica di Santa Croce, contains frescoes by Giotto, and a chapel in the cloister designed by Filippo Brunicelli that is considered one of the masterpieces of Renaissance architecture. According to St. Francis and the Franciscans' reading of the Bible, Christ told his followers to take on a vow of poverty, and he said to them, "Take nothing for your journey, neither staff, nor scrip, nor bread, nor money. Neither have two coats." So how did a sect of Catholicism that held a vow of poverty as one of its core values own such a posh church? Well, in 1322, the Pope declared that the Franciscans' vow of poverty was illegal, that Christ had in fact owned property and wanted his followers to own property. This meant, of course, that the Franciscans were forced to collect money and land, which would in turn go to the Pope, proving that biblical interpretation can be surprisingly profitable, especially if you're the Pope. La Rosa Colta. Okay, so Rebecca's just telling us that there's a glyph on it. Opened in 1465, La Rosa Colta, the plucked rose, quickly became essential to Florentine life. The women were known for being upper class, they were educated in poetry and the arts, as well as sexual intercourse. It was not rare to see members of the Signoria at La Rosa Colta, and even on occasion a Medici. San Marco district. In the late 1400s, most of the city's construction went on in San Marco. Important landmarks include the Church of Santa Croce and the Palazzo Medici. Loggia di Lanzi, built between 1376 and 1382 by Benzi di Cian and Simon di Francesco Talenti, the Loggia di Lanzi was created to provide a covering for the swearing in of the members of the Signoria, the rulers of Florence. In the 16th century, the Medici had a private balcony constructed on top, making it clear to the city of Florence who was really in charge. Palazzo della Signoria. Arnolfo di Cambio designed the Palazzo della Signoria, also known as the Palazzo Vecchio, in 1299 for the rulers of Florence, the Signoria. The Signoria was made up of 9 members, or priori, selected by the city's guilds, 2 from each district, and a gonfalonier of justice. Members were supposed to be chosen by lot, but once the Medici family took power, only their friends seemed to end up in the drawing. Government by the people, right? Interesting fact, the tower in front is off-center because it was incorporated into the palazzo from an earlier structure. It contains 2 small cells, one of which was used to imprison Cosimo de' Medici. Bottega di Leonardo a Firenze. Leonardo da Vinci opened his own studio after completing his apprenticeship to Verrocchio, one of the most successful Florentine artists of the day. Between 1476 and 1481, Leonardo probably continued to collaborate with Verrocchio, although no one is quite sure what he was working on. In 1481, he was given his first commission by the monks of San Donato Scopetto to paint the Adoration of the Magi. In true Da Vinci style, he began the painting, but never finished it. Giotto's Campanile. Begun by Giotto di Bondone, the famous architect and painter, in 1334, this famous Gothic bell tower was incomplete when Giotto died. Andrea Pisano took over, and then in 1348 was felled by the Black Death. In 1359, the tower was completed by Francesco Talenti, who deviated from Giotto's plan in his design of the upper 3 floors. He enlarged each floor to match the previous according to perspective, so when seen from below, all 3 floors seemed to be exactly the same size. The tower is clad with white marble from Carrara, red marble from Siena, and green marble from Prato. It takes exactly 414 steps to reach the top, perhaps predicting Charles Messier's discovery of the Whirlpool Galaxy exactly 414 years later. Or perhaps not. The Santa Maria del Fiore. One of Italy's largest churches and the largest landmark in Florence, Santa Maria del Fiore is considered by many to be the first masterpiece of Renaissance architecture. Although the church was designed by Arnolfo di Cambio in 1296, the dome was not started until the beginning of the 15th century. With Cambio long dead, none of the architects at that time had any idea how to construct such an enormous structure, since the use of buttresses was forbidden in Florence, and mortar took several days to set. But all was not lost. In an amazing comeback story, Filippo Brunelleschi, an architect who had been defeated in an earlier bid to design the baptistry doors, won the competition to build the dome. He beat out Lorenzo Ghiberti, the same artist he had lost to before. Brunelleschi invented machines to hoist the bricks needed for the dome up to the workers and was able to construct the entire dome without using centering, a support structure to hold the dome in place while bricks were laid. Containing over 4 million bricks, the dome was completed in 1436. The lantern was added after Brunelleschi's death in 1446 and supposedly contains holy relics. However, there were several rumors that in fact an entire tomb of unknown origin is located inside. Casa di Vespici. Built by a distant great-great-uncle of the famous Amerigo Vespucci in 1350, the relatively unpresumptuous Vespici residence is notable for displaying the first painted facade in Florence, a style that was later done to death in the Ottarano district. Palazzo Auditore. Completed in 1473, the Palazzo Auditore is notable for its rusticated stonework and Roman pilasters. Giovanni Auditore designed the palazzo himself based on initial sketches by Leon Battista Alberti once built, the palazzo became a fixture of the Santa Maria Novella district. Lorenzo di Medici mentioned in a letter addressed to Giovanni, dated 1474, that he admired the facade's lack of ostination. The Santa Trinita. Constructed over an existing church in 1258, Santa Trinita, or Holy Trinity, is known for its Sassetti Chapel, which is decorated with frescoes of the life of St. Francis by Domenico Ghirlandaio, painter most famous for his brief role as one of Michelangelo's teachers. Santa Trinita was the mother church of the Vallombrosan order of monks, a very serious group that strictly enforced both poverty and silence for life. Despite the beauty of the Santa Trinita frescoes, very few Vallombrosan monks are likely to have seen them on account of the fact that the monks received beatings for going outside their monasteries. Thanks. Ponte Vecchio. This famous bridge spans the Arno at its narrowest point. The original version was presumably constructed by the Romans, but the first written records only appear in 996. Two previous incarnations of the bridge were swept away in floods before the present structure was built in 1345. A tower was built at the southeast corner to defend it. The bridge consists of three segmental arches. It has always had shops lining the central passageway, a feature which seems extraordinary now, but was common during the Renaissance. At first, butchers took up residence there, but over time they were pushed out by jewelers, souvenir shops, and creepy teenagers chaining locks to the bridge railing and throwing the keys into the river in a bid for eternal love, not realizing that the locks will be cut off later that day by disgruntled polizia. Everlasting indeed. If you're wondering why some of these database entries are sarcastic, I believe it was mentioned earlier that Sean is the one giving us these database entries, so he's the one writing them. San Giovanni District. San Giovanni was named after St. John the Baptist, the patron saint of Florence. It is the oldest area of the city and the center of administration, encompassing the Palazzo della Signoria. If big churches are your thing, head to Santa Maria del Fiore on the northern edge. It's the one with the gigantic dome. Firenze. Founded by Julius Caesar in 59 BCE, Florentia, as it was called by the Romans, quickly became a center of commerce. After the sacking of Rome in the 5th century, the Ostrogoths took over. Under their rule, the city was constantly under attack from the Byzantines, who sent the population level below 1,000. The Lombards came to power in the 6th century, ending the Byzantine assaults. Florence grew to a population of 80,000 in the 14th century, of which 25,000 were working in the wool industry. In 1378, a major revolt of the lower class led to the wool combers rising up and seizing the government of the city. Their progressive radical democracy lasted for less than 2 months before the upper classes seized control once more, but the revolt so terrified the rich that a century later it was still discussed in hushed tones, much as the 1960s hippie movement is today. The Albizzi family became the de facto rulers after the revolt. Worried about the rise of the Medici family, who were newly rich bankers rapidly gaining influence in Florence, Maso and Rinaldo Albizzi imprisoned Cosimo de' Medici and exiled him in 1433. But Cosimo gained an influence behind the scenes and rose to power in 1434, exiling the entire Albizzi family except for Luca, who had been loyal to Cosimo. Luca Albizzi joined the Signoria, the ruling body of Florence, as Gonfaloniere, succeeding Cosimo's old friend Ilario Auditore in 1442. Under the Medici family, which built impressive public buildings and sported such luminaries as Michelangelo, Leonardo, and Botticelli, the Renaissance began with Florence securely at its center. And I think, yeah, that brings us all around. And then we have a couple. We have some entries for Tuscany here, which was that city we had a very brief encounter with. That's where we assassinated that one kid. Torre connected to the 13th century Palazzo Vecchio del Podesta, the Torre of Ragnosa rises 51 meters above San Gimignano. Podesta, or power in English, was a title given to the appointed head of many Italian cities. The Palazzo Vecchio was the residence of the Podesta of San Gimignano for about 100 years until in 1337 he moved across the square into the Palazzo Comunale. Why would the Podesta simply abandon tradition like that? Perhaps because the Palazzo Comunale has the largest tower in San Gimignano. Tower envy. Do not underestimate it as a force for change. San Gimignano, named after Saint Geminianus, who supposedly conjured up a dense fog to save the city of Modena from Attila the Hun. San Gimignano was founded in the 3rd century. The city grew from the 10th century onward as a stopping point along the pilgrimage route to Rome. In 1199, once its citizens grew wealthy, San Gimignano separated from the bishops of Volterra and became self-governing. The city's distinctive towers were created as its wealthy citizens competed to display how much money was actually in their pockets. In its heyday, the city had 72 towers. But the plague of 1348 decimated San Gimignano. Without money for upkeep, the town started to fall apart. The council appealed to Florence, and Florence took control. Villa Auditory, Rebecca 84, one of those strange. Okay. Constructed in 1290, the Villa Auditory is an important medieval predecessor to early Renaissance architecture. The villa's wonderful symmetry and ordered geometry were a revelation for its time. Not only concerned with aesthetics, Domenico Auditore, Ezio Auditore's great-grandfather, designed his home to double as a fortress and training ground. Looking out both over the city that it protects and the Tuscan plains. After a Florentine attack in 1320 left the facade damaged, the present facade was erected and a painting gallery was added to the interior. Domenico was more than just an architect and a warrior, he was also a skilled engineer. Recently discovered hidden compartments and rooms with mechanisms blocking entry are several unique features of the building that make it a technological marvel as well as an architectural one. Monteriggioni. Built in the 13th century by the overlords of Siena, Monteriggioni was actively involved in the defense of Tuscany against Florentine attempts to gain more territory. At the front of this conflict was the Auditore family, who became the city's rulers and protectors. It was the Auditore who constructed Monteriggioni's famous walls, which can still be seen today. Although standing in opposition to Florentine desires, the Auditore had cordial relations with the Medici family, largely due to their collective Florentine roots. Monteriggioni successfully withstood attacks from Florence until in 1554 the city was betrayed. Giovannino Zetti, the keeper of the garrison and a Florentine exile, was allowed to return to Florence in exchange for the keys to the city. Extraordinarily, the Auditore were allowed to continue their rule of Monteriggioni under Florentine leadership, showing that the Medici do not forget their friends. Santa Maria Assunta. Referred to as Duomo by the locals, even though it doesn't deserve the title because the town has no bishop, Santa Maria Assunta was built in the 12th century. Shockingly, it has no tower, although in San Gimignano, the city of towers, such an act of celibacy coming from a church was probably a smart move. Palazzo Comunale. Palazzo Comunale, San Gimignano's town hall, was built as the seat of the municipal government in 1288. As befits the city of towers, one of the council's earliest acts inside their new home was to construct the Torre Grossa on top. The Podesta took up residence at the Palazzo Comunale in 1337. Alright, what do we got left here? People, locations, documents. These are codex pages. I'll save these for when we have all of them. And I think we've read all the letters. The truth is just the video, user manual. I mean, it'll tell me how to play the game. Hooray. And I think that's it for our database. We have conspirators. So this is where it originated. Because I did like the... I didn't see something like this in Assassin's Creed 4, but Assassin's Creed Valhalla as a chart of conspirators, and this must be where it originally happened. And I do rather like this system. So And there we go. I think that's all of our current readings. I think because we're in the menu, that doesn't count towards playtime, and it doesn't count towards our income. But I think we'll leave off here today, and tomorrow we'll continue. Not tomorrow, but next week we'll continue with the story. This must be where all our weapons and art go. So with that, thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for next time, and stay safe out there, and we'll see you then.